In a high-stakes political showdown, Jasmine Crockett didn't just push back, she directly dismantled the arguments of Jim Jordan and Republican lawmakers. With sharp, uncompromising reasoning, she quickly seized control of the exchange, turning what was meant to be pressure into a powerful counterattack. Instead of evading, Crockett consistently forced her opponents onto the defensive, exposing inconsistencies and logical gaps in their arguments. This moment was more than a typical debate. It was a clear demonstration that in politics, preparation and quick thinking can completely shift the dynamic, turning the one under scrutiny into the one in control.
I feel as if some people don't understand how government works, and I don't know how they got to Congress. Okay, I got a lot of ground to cover. I do want to clarify, Mr. Fahey, when you consistently talk about or New York crime, you're speaking in an opinionated stance. You're not speaking from a place of fact, correct?
No, I'm speaking from a place of facts.
Okay, well, let me clarify for you. Thank you so much. I'm reclaiming my time. Let me clarify for you that NYPD puts out reports. And in April, it said overall index crime across New York City dropped another 4.9%. As it relates to May, the report says overall index crime across New York dropped another 2.4%.
Representative Jasmine Crockett is at it again, setting Republicans and their witnesses straight while debunking the false narratives they continue to spew.
I can't even imagine someone bringing a fraud case to the United States Attorney's Office where nobody lost money, there were no victims, and no one was worse off at the end of it. It just makes it laughable, even before you get to steps 2 through probably 20 that make this case really absurd to have been brought to begin with.
Jonathan Fahey, a Fox News guest and a former DHS and ICE official in the waning days of the Trump administration, is working with Jim Jordan and the Republicans to cast doubt on Trump's convicted felon status. They're arguing that the government was unconstitutionally weaponized against him.
It wasn't a contribution. If it was a contribution, it would not have been reported until after the election, and no one suffered any losses, and yet they bring this charge against President Trump. I find that just amazing. If that's not political motivation, I don't know, because what other motivation could there be?
It's really almost inarguable at this point that the motivation for this case was political. It's really, I've never heard a serious argument that it should have been prosecuted otherwise. I know Mr. Wu might have one, but I just haven't heard that, because it seems political from the inception all the way to the end.
Yeah. Wasn't a contribution, wouldn't have been reported even if it was, if they paid it out of the campaign. No one suffered loss, and yet there was some kind of conspiracy to impact an election. Campaign finance expert says it wasn't a contribution, and even if it was a contribution, if they treated it as a contribution, paid it out of the campaign, it wouldn't have been reported until after the election, so there's no conspiracy to influence the election. No one suffered any harm or fraud in the initial case, former prosecutor tells us, and the judge tells us that the defendant didn't know what he was charged with until the end of the trial, and the judge gave instructions to the jury, never mind the fact the judge should have recused himself, which you point out in your written testimony, Judge. The judge didn't tell the jury, or told the jury, you don't have to be unanimous. But the real thing here is the opportunity cost. And you raised this in your testimony, Mr. Fahey. The opportunity cost. When Alvin Bragg did the day one memo, says we are not going to charge all these felonies, we're going to bring them down to misdemeanors and let the bad guys roam the streets of New York. How that squares with what happened here, that to me is the real issue. That's the issue that most Americans see, like, we're going to do this to the former president of the United States, meanwhile, take felony charges against really bad guys on the street and bring them down to misdemeanors. That's the opportunity cost here, I believe.
Now that we've heard the latest nonsense Jordan is trying to push on the American people, let's turn back to Crockett's response. All she needed was the truth and a little legal training. I mean, she is a lawyer.
So currently, I think that I serve in the legislative branch. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay, fine. Can you tell me, when somebody goes to court, such as a criminal convicted of 34 felony counts, state court in New York, would that be the legislative people or judicial people?
Well, it's really the executive that's prosecuting, and then it's within the judiciary to run the trial properly.
Okay, very good. So, judiciary. So typically, if someone has an issue with, say, what happens in court, do they then somehow hop from state court all the way to the federal legislative branch, or is there a different process in which you are supposed to be able to explain any issues you may have?
The process would be the judicial appellate process, holding aside the issue of state versus federal.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So normally people don't get convicted on a state level and somehow end up litigating the issue on the federal level in the legislative branch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So something is different about what's going on today. I just wanted to clarify because I thought I was living in the
In the confrontation between Jasmine Crockett and Jim Jordan, this was no longer a routine debate. It became a battle over how truth itself is framed in politics. Crockett didn't just push back, she systematically dismantled each argument, using data and legal understanding to break down the speculative claims presented by Jordan and his allies. While they attempted to turn a judicial matter into a political narrative, Crockett pulled the discussion back to where it belongs, grounded in law, process, and facts. Her precision forced the opposition into a defensive position, exposing logical gaps and inconsistencies in their arguments. What stands out is that Crockett wasn't just arguing to win, she controlled the entire narrative framework. Through sharp, at times subtly sarcastic delivery, she made politically charged claims appear irrational when measured against standard legal procedures. This moment highlights a clear reality. In modern politics, the side that controls the framing of an issue doesn't just win the argument, it shapes how the public understands the truth. And when truth is distorted, restoring it isn't just skill, it is power.
Only kind of went to law school, passed a couple of bar exams, and practiced on the state and federal levels. But just clarify for me, when someone goes in to be prosecuted, is it, say, the President of the United States that somehow becomes the state prosecutor in New York?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not, because he's the executor, huh? That's that other branch.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so you have this prosecutor, and in this case, it's Alvin Bragg, who was duly elected, correct?
Correct.
Not appointed by the president, correct?
Right.
Duly elected by the citizens in his jurisdiction, right?
Right.
So the very first part of a case is that we go through an investigation. After that investigation, then the prosecutor usually has what we would consider to be some sort of prosecutorial discretion as to whether or not they want to go forward, correct?
Correct.
All right, and then they use that discretion, but then when it's somebody that is facing a felony amount of time, which is usually in most states over a year, then they have to present it to a grand jury. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, a grand jury is comprised of citizens, correct?
Correct.
U.S. citizens from that area, correct?
Right.
Okay, so they have to come to the conclusion that they are going to issue what we call a true bill, correct?
Correct.
All right, so then we have an indictment. And then there's pretrial motions, there's pretrial hearings, all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
All right, and then ultimately, depending on where you are, you have the opportunity to say, hey, I want a jury trial, correct?
Correct.
And a jury trial is comprised of U.S. citizens again, right?
Right.
Okay, very good. All right, so can you tell me so far if all of this took place in the case in New York?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay. Your attorney is allowed to pick the jury, they're allowed to present evidence, and ultimately it is a jury of your peers who decides whether or not you are guilty or not, correct?
Correct.
And in this case,
the picking has the judge involved too.
And in this case, they found him guilty not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4, not 5, not 6. I could keep going on, but 34 counts were given. So the opinions of these people who were not juries is not what we do in this country. In this country, we have a system in which jurors decide who is found guilty, and if you have a problem with that, you go to the appellate court, which the last time I checked, he was raising money so that he could go to the appellate court and appeal his decision, and they will have the final say so. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
In this line of questioning, Jasmine Crockett doesn't just argue, she reconstructs the entire legal process as a map of truth to dismantle politically driven narratives. Step by step, from investigation to the discretion of a duly elected prosecutor to the grand jury, and ultimately a trial decided by a jury of citizens, she forces her opponents to acknowledge an undeniable reality. The justice system operates through procedure, not the will of any single powerful individual. By emphasizing that the verdict was delivered by a jury, not politicians, not public opinion, she directly undercuts attempts to reframe a legal conviction as a politically motivated grievance. Her sharpness lies in relying not on emotional attacks, but on logic and legal structure to corner the opposition. When someone is convicted through a full and established judicial process, yet still rejects the outcome, the issue is no longer with the system. It is with the refusal to accept reality. And it is precisely here that Crockett flips the narrative, turning claims of a weaponized justice system into evidence of either misunderstanding or deliberate distortion of how the system actually works. This is more than debate. It is a pointed reminder that in a functioning democracy, the law does not serve power. Power is held accountable by the law.